So you were in the military. You were in the Marines, am I right?
That's correct.
Could you give me some insight about the Marines?
Well, I don't know if I can give you insight. I can give you my own experience. The
That would be good.
Marines were very good for me in terms of maturity. I realized that there was a need for discipline and order, and that it was very necessary to follow procedures if you were involved in any kind of combat experience, that you could not operate independently. And so from that perspective, it was very beneficial for me. It has stuck with me, some of the lessons that I learned. One thing was I was exposed to the Vietnam War, and I saw many people dead and in body bags, which is similar to what is occurring right now in this country. So I think that it was good. I was very fortunate that I did not die myself in the Vietnam War, and so I became more appreciative of life, and that has served me well. In addition.
Mm-hmm. So you have a gratitude for being alive right now.
I do. I am grateful that I was in the Marines. I also learned that absolute unthinking following of rules and regulations is not something that can always be followed, nor should it. And which makes me think of World War II and what occurred there. And there is a similarity to that and what is going on today in this country. So I guess there are no absolutes. I think the only absolutes are really scientific absolutes.
Mm-hmm. So what is the difference between the armed forces, meaning like the Army, the Marine Corps, Navy, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard? Could you?
Well, basically, they're all military. They all follow procedures that are unique to the service that they provide. Obviously, the names Navy imply that they're going to be fighting primarily on water or from the water. And the Marines and the Army usually fight on land. The Air Force fights in the air. That's basically the only difference between the services. All of the services have great pride in their own service, as I think most militaries do. And they have unique areas where they specialize in particular types of warfare. When I was in the Marines, I was trained in guerrilla warfare, chemical and biological warfare. I was trained in a variety of ways to survive. And all of those were beneficial to me, but also a little frightening when you realize what you're really training for, no matter what service you're in. So I think all the services are, they're there to protect their countries. And I think we have to do that, unfortunately, because we haven't realized that we're all part of the same world.
Mm-hmm. So in Switzerland, all of the males so all of the men have to go do basic training if they have the Swiss passport, or I think maybe even if you're a resident of Switzerland. Do you think that is um, do you think that would be good for the United States, or do you think that would be any or bad? Could you? What would?
Well, I know you don't know this, Eamon, but when I was in the service, that was the case. They had what was called a draft, and all men would have to participate in the draft and were required to go into the military. And that no longer is the case. Now we have what is described as a volunteer army. And so people voluntarily join the service. I think that based on my experience, being forced to become part of the military was beneficial for me personally. I do think it would be beneficial for most people. I don't think that we should segregate who goes in and who doesn't go in. I learned some very interesting things when I went in. At the time that I was in, there was a great deal of civil unrest in the country due to the human rights movement and the segregation of Black people. And I was very naive to that and unaware of it. And it wasn't until I was in the service and left my home and went to the southern part of the United States that I realized how much prejudice and hatred existed in different areas, and how vicious it really was. And I had many experiences where I was directly involved in situations, and that changed my perspective. So I think that it would benefit everyone to be part of something that is countrywide or universal, both males and females, so they might appreciate or have a better idea of what really transpires in a country, even though it may not exist where they live. And I guess I should give you an example of this, but one of the situations that occurred was that I walked into a train station in South Carolina. It was a very small rural train station, and I had to go to the bathroom, so I went into the bathroom. There was no one in the bathroom except for another Black man, and we were standing at urinals. He looked at me from a distance down at the other end, and I looked at him, and I nodded my head, and he looked very, very frightened, and he ran out of the lavatory and behind me and just kept running. And so I didn't understand what that was about. I walked out of the lavatory myself and went over to buy my ticket, and I told the ticket master that I wanted to purchase a ticket, and he said something to the effect of, "Well, where are you going to do that, boy?" And being a Marine, you didn't like to be called boy because you considered yourself a man. And I said, "Well, I'm purchasing a ticket for New Bern, North Carolina." And he said, "Well, you're not going to do that here." And I said, "And why is that?" And he said, "Because you refuse to use the white lavatory and you went into the black lavatory. And I said, I didn't even realize there were two lavatories and they were segregated. And he said, well, that's too bad, you're not buying a ticket. And so that was one of my experiences. Another